Hi everyone, today I just want to talk about my Berlin hangover and the missed flight after it and all the shenanigans that went on with that trip. Would have been about 15 years ago now, and I was living in Norway at the time. Had a flatmate, he was maybe about 10 years older than me, but absolute legend. But we both liked going out, and both had really good jobs. I was working in oil, he was doing a lot of kind of carpentry, kind of joinery stuff, and we had a few people working for him. And one day we just decided to go on holiday. And Paolo Nutini's a big artist here in the UK, a singer. I think he's really good. And he was playing in the Ostbahnhof, which is the east train station in Berlin. And it was just, it was one of those 30 quid flights with Norwegian Airlines, who are now kind of not an entity anymore. I think they went bankrupt, but we thought, you know what, we'll go over there and we'll go see Paul Nutini. We'll have a good Friday, Saturday night, back the Sunday, a winner. So we booked the flights, got the tickets sorted, and went over there on the Friday. And as usual, drinking on the at the airport. Sorry, drinking on the plane. Got there, got absolutely hammered. I remember we went out till about 5, 6 in the morning. We bumped into a few other Norwegians that were there in this outdoor bar. I remember it was absolutely freezing as well. We just sat under this place with heaters. And they owned some sort of bar cafe thing and invited us back, and we ended up going out till 5, 6 in the morning, absolute session. And woke up on the Saturday, and as usual, I think we were kind of still drunk. We were staying in some crappy hotel. It did the job, a typical 3-star hotel. It was a bit out the centre, but it was so cheap anyway, and we were only really sleeping there. So no point in splashing out on anything big. And I remember we woke up like really still quite drunk, and then ended up going out again in Berlin, and it was just, I loved it. We went to the wall there, and I didn't actually have a hangover at all. It was just, like I say, still drunk from the night before, probably bed 5, 6 o'clock in the morning. And I remember just all I ate all day was a pizza. We found this pizzeria next to the hotel. Like I say, we're a bit outside, so the prices obviously dropped significantly. It was €5 for a pizza. I had one of them, and we just did this massive tour around Berlin, and then ended up going to the concert. And I remember before the concert, we went to the east side of Berlin, and it was absolutely dead. But I love my World War II history, so I wanted to kind of see as many parts of Berlin with kind of significance in that area as possible. So we went to the east side, and everywhere was dead. And we went to this Indian restaurant was there, and there was a guy just standing outside, and he was, "Oh, why don't you come in? Why don't you come in?" And my flatmate at the time said to the guy who was working, the restaurant was empty, he said, "We'll only come in if you sit and have shots with us." And the guy went, "All right, let's do it." And we sat kind of outside under these heaters, and I can't even remember it being cold, to be honest, but that's probably because we were out the night before and we were topping up. And I remember my flatmate, who had a few quid, he just started piling in the shots. We were having tequilas and sambucas, and asking the guy who was coming out with shots, we were asking, "Oh, make something you would like," and stuff like this. And we must have tanned so many shots. It was a farce. And I can't even remember the concert, which is another just bit of madness. I never record really concerts when I go there. I like to just sit and watch, and I can't even remember any of it, which is just such a shame. But that's like many other kind of concerts and events you go to when you're drinking too much alcohol at the weekends, like binge drinking. You never even remember anything. And that night passed. I can't even remember what time we went home. But I just remember waking up on the Sunday, and I honestly had the worst hangover. And I know I've said this about 100,000 times before, but this had to be up there in at least the top 5. Just the usual. I'd only had that pizza the day before. At the Indian, I think I was just picking on naan bread or something, because my appetite would just go. Get loads of people actually that say that they don't like being hungover and drunk because they just end up eating like 10 Dominoes and a Chinese and that, but I just don't have an appetite. And maybe that was a good thing, maybe it's a bad thing, but I just couldn't eat. Let's say while I'm drinking, I just want to go to bed if I eat too much, and then the next day there's just no chance I'm eating, absolute zero appetite. And I just felt awful the next day, and I was in this kind of, like I say, crappy 3-star hotel, which, like I say, when you're not hungover or nothing, completely does the job, but when you're sitting there and you're dying and stuff like that, it's just the worst. And I couldn't stop spewing. I just genuinely couldn't stop spewing. And I remember going down to the reception, checking out, and I felt so awful, like awful, and I had a bit of the fear as well, and the anxiety is there, and just grim. And I remember saying to the receptionist, listen, is there any like apotheques here, like chemists? And she said, what's wrong? And I said, I can't stop being sick. And she's like, oh my God, you have to go to the hospital. And I'm like, why? And he goes, oh, there's been an E. coli outbreak in like the area or part of Berlin, I can't really remember. And I was like, oh my God. And I did, like, normally I would have just said, you know what, it's not that bad, I'm fine. But with the anxiety, you go into kind of weird, no idea why I did that mode. And I was like, oh no. And she was like, you have to go to the hospital, get thing, and blah, blah, blah. And I'm just thinking E. coli, and oh my God, I'm going to die, I think. So I end up going to this hospital. And I think I just rocked up, probably looking like death. My flatmates, like, just get some food down you, and like, we've got a flight home. And I'm like, no, I need to go. There's an E. coli, imagine I'm on the plane, and I've got E. coli and I'm dying, and they have to divert the plane, and like I say, stuff that you would never ever think about if you weren't drinking. But obviously, I've turned into Peter Panic, kind of because of the anxiety, the fear and the anxiety, and it's ridiculous. And I went into this hospital, and nobody spoke English there, but everyone, all the nurses there, must have been, I don't know, like a Catholic kind of hospital or something like that. Like everyone are like really religious, because all the nurses were dressed like nuns. And it was just the weirdest thing ever, and the building was so old. So you can only imagine what that's doing for my fear. And I ended up getting a bag, an IV bag it was, because obviously mega hungover. And if you've been hungover and you had an IV bag before, it's up there with the greatest hangover cures in the world. I know in Hollywood actually you can get a nurse round, you can probably do it in Dubai, and they actually hook you up with vitamins and a IV bag to cure your hangover. It's wild. But so I'm on this IV bag, and I'm thinking to myself, I get 2 down, that's it. And I'm lying just in this hospital bed. And by that point, I don't know, maybe it's because I'm more hydrated and stuff like that, but I'm starting to feel all right. But the fear's still there. And I'm in this like hospital that seemed to be from like the 1910s, and everyone's dressed like a nun, while the nurses are. And I'm just like, oh, I need to get out of here. So I'm thinking, bag 2 down, I'm going. So I have that bag, and I just say to the nurse, I really need to go. And they're saying something in German, and I did German at school and that, but German's awful. And I'm like, I need to go. And I ended up, they were like, I had to go down to the bottom and pay. And it cost a fortune, like absolute fortune. And I think, they'd kind of, I can't even really remember what I said. And I just paid the bill and went home, but I'd missed my flight. And by that time, my flatmate's giving me crap, rightly so, like, can't believe you ditched me and went, what a drama queen you are, blah, blah, blah. And I think my fear in that must have just left, because I'm just standing there somewhere in Berlin. I've got my suitcase. I've went to this place because I've got suspected E. coli, which is obviously, I probably didn't tell the receptionist, of course, that I'd been out the last 2 nights, drinking shots and hardly eating any food like I'd always do. Same mistake every single time. And I ended up I was standing there with a suitcase, no idea where I was, and I ended up just walking along and finding this hotel. Cost me a fortune as well. It was a lovely hotel as well, but they were just, you just want to get somewhere where you feel kind of like safe or something. And I ended up checking in there, and I remember checking in there, and I still didn't have an appetite. I still couldn't really keep any food down. I'm just lying in the bed. Still remember the hotel room and everything. I was trying to drink water, and I was nauseous, and just stupid. And I mean, that's like a holiday. And there's so many cases like that. Not the hospital thing, of course, that was a one-off, but just when you wake up in the morning on the Sunday, and for days after, you got the journey home, which is just giving you the ultimate fear, and you know, it's just stuff like normally you would not even care about. Like I say, like, why did I end up going to the hospital? If somebody said to me now, and I'd been, well, I guess now, if I was puking and stuff like that, I would probably think, well, there's something up, because obviously I don't drink anymore. But, you know, if you've been drinking 2 nights and you're away and you've been having shots the night before and you're feeling spewing and you're kind of spewing every 10 minutes and nothing's really coming up, you pretty much know the reason. You don't need to be a doctor to figure that one out. But in my paranoid state, you know, just way too much booze over the weekend, you're just like, you know, I better get checked out. Yeah, I better get checked out. And it's just, and then of course when you come back to work, I would have taken the Monday off, no doubt, and before I'd went away, because I knew it would have been a heavy one. And you're back at work on the Tuesday sitting at your desk and everyone's like, oh, how was your holiday? And you're like, yeah, chilled out, yeah, very chilled. And again, you just feel like an absolute clown. You're just like, see if people knew the truth. But I can imagine there's so many people out there that have the same stories as I do. And what I was like, I've started watching Backcountry. He's got a really good YouTube channel. And every time I tell my hangover stories, I feel like they're like a 1 or 2 out of 10 compared to his one. But it's brilliant. I love hearing them, hearing all the different drunken kind of stories. And, you know, you just have to try and, I don't know, maybe laugh at them if they're yourself. You know, a lot of the times you're just looking back and thinking, what a clown. But, you know, looking back, you've just got to move on and try and make light of it. And, you know, it's just, I'll try and keep these. I've still got so many videos. Like I say, I don't think I'll reach like Backcountry level or a few of the other YouTubers you get here, where you just, like I was watching Sober Start the other day. I think that's his name, Rick. He was talking about how he ruined his best mate's wedding. He was best man. I don't have any as wild as that, but I've got a few wild ones from back in my days where you just think to yourself, what was I doing? And once you get older, you just look back and you've just got to kind of laugh at it and put it down to, you know, you were in your 20s. But I don't get myself too riled up about it. You know, everyone's done daft stuff in their life and, you know, stupid stuff, drunk or sober. It's just a big learning curve, especially when you're in your 20s and, you know, you start working, you get your own place for the first time, you start going, you get a bit of money, so you start going on better holidays and you've got bigger budgets to spend. But it's just, that's another, the Berlin one, it was just, what a mess. But anyway, thanks for watching, it's appreciated, and I'll see you in the next one. Take care.